And sometimes cobwobblies get a bit scared. By Elizabeth Evelyn. As the cobwobblies were very busy that day, no one noticed the speckly leaf come to rest under a nearby tree. It sat very still for some time, watching them in silence. First a cobwobbly picked up an apple, then another put it in a box, and another stored it away until it was needed. It was very hard work, and took a lot of thinking. The leaf gave a long, low growl. Cobwobblies shouldn't be allowed to work, thought the leaf, rolling a little nearer. They should be miserable. And with that he began to hum a strange tune, softly at first, then a bit louder and a bit higher, until a magic breeze swept across the field. "Eek!" cried the cobwobblies. The breeze got stronger and more swirly, catching at the cobwobblies and throwing them into the air. "Help!" they cried, but no one could hear them above the sound of the wind. The leaf grinned to itself, then stopped the wind with a flick of his tail. The cobwobblies crashed to the ground. They were most confused. The speckly leaf flicked his tail again and rolled quietly away. The cobwobblies struggled to their feet, but something strange was happening. All around the grass began to hiss and sway. The cobwobblies inched forward, but the hissing just kept on getting louder. "What are we going to do?" they said. Looking around, they found some twigs. "We could use these to fight off the fierce grass," they thought. But just as they were going to pick them up, the twig snarled. "Oh no!" cried the cobwobblies, and ran as fast as they could till the grass was behind them and the twigs were out of reach. Eventually they stopped and looked around. Where were they? They hadn't a clue. They had been so scared they'd not noticed where they were going. They only knew what it was they were trying to escape. "Oh no, what are we going to do now?" they sighed. Huddling together, they closed their eyes and tried to sleep, but all they could hear was the grass hissing in the distance. The braver cobwobblies half opened one eye, but they could also hear the snarling of the twigs and a faint breeze in the trees, so they shut their eyes again. Suddenly one of them said, "Shh!" They all held their breath and listened. There was a sound. They could just about hear it, but they weren't sure what it was. So one by one they took a deep breath, closed their eyes again, and tried to sleep. "Listen," whispered one of them again. The cobwobblies listened as hard as they possibly could. Sure enough, there was a sound, a humming sound, and not too far away. Then looking up, they saw it, a beautiful soft blue flower glistening in the sunlight. At that moment, thought the cobwobblies, it seemed to be the most beautiful flower in the world. "Ah," they sighed. Just then something magical happened. The flower floated up into the air and slowly began to spin. "Whoa!" the cobwobblies cried in amazement. The speckly leaf reappeared. It took one look at the flower and growled. Then it looked at the cobwobblies. They were scared. The leaf trembled with anger. The cobwobblies huddled closer. Then the flower floated down and, twirling, flew gently round and round them. "Come with me," it whispered. The cobwobblies crept forward. The flower inched its way back along the path the cobwobblies had used earlier. "This way," it murmured again. Then the speckly leaf flicked its tail. The cobwobblies shook with fear. "Look at me," breathed the flower high above them. "Come, come." Slowly the cobwobblies shuffled back along the path. Only then the speckly leaf stretched up as tall as he could and roared. The cobwobblies were terrified. "Come on, watch me and follow," hummed the flower. Quickly the cobwobblies fixed their eyes firmly on the flower and followed. They held on to each other as tight as they could. "Keep going," breathed the flower. "Quicker." Bit by bit the cobwobblies went back along the path, past the snarling twigs, past the hissing grass, until at last they were back in the field where the apples lay. "Thank you," cried the cobwobblies, turning to the flower. But there was no flower, only the speckled leaf, growling and swishing his tail. "So you think you can defy me?" he boomed. "You think you can wander away when the grass sways and hisses and the twigs snarl?" "We were following the flower," cried the cobwobblies. "Flower? And what flower might that be?" snapped the speckly leaf. "I see no flower. Take a look." The cobwobblies gulped. "You might have got away with it this time, cobwobblies. The next time I'll have you," growled the leaf angrily. And with that he disappeared. The cobwobblies checked nervously for signs of the speckly leaf, and just for a moment they thought they saw a soft blue petal dip behind a tree before just drifting away. Was there a flower? The cobwobblies thought about it for a very long time, but actually they could never be sure.